Massachusetts, July 23rd, Bush Hill Road south to Boardman Street. We started on Bush Hill Road and left 2 oranges at the parking area for thru hikers. Today it was cloudy and humid when we started off on the trail with lots of mosquitoes out. The climb was not too bad through a forest mix of hardwood and pine. We went through an area that went over a rocky cliff where we had stopped and sat down on a large boulder to eat our lunch. Some songbirds and some crows were out here singing, and we had an excellent view of Jug End. We passed a family from Australia that were out for a 12-day backpacking trip on the AT. They were covering about 12 miles a day on the trail. They told us that the AT was more of an adventure than it was on a vacation in the south of France or in Greece. We descended steeply to Boardman Street and knew this climb back was going to be bad. We met a thru hiker coming up, and he told us, "Good thing you are going down this. I just climbed the last mountain." We reached Boardman Street and found a lot of wildflowers here. An arch of berries was over the trail near the road that I have never seen before. We had a great view of Jug End and Bear Mountain form the road. The sun had come out, and we turned around to do our tedious climb back up to Loon Mountain. We passed another family on our way up. They were really getting out of breath on this climb, and Dave said that he thought that the grandfather looked like he was going to have a heart attack from this climb and humidity. He started to talk about EMT stuff and treating him with baby aspirins and hoping that he wouldn't have to do CPR. Luckily, they had made it to the road without incident. When we reached the road, we could not find the car keys in the backpack. We always put the keys inside the backpack before we hike so that we do not drop them on the trail. Dave had looked frantically inside the pack, but the keys were not in the pack. Now, I have told Dave on many occasions to make sure that he has the keys before we close the doors. He, of course, swore that he had put the keys in the pack before we left on our hike today. Well, anyways, he had to use his skills as a security officer and use the antenna of our car to unlock the door. After he got the door unlocked, he looked around inside and found the keys on the passenger seat. Oops. I had forgot that I had to pee before we left, and I had asked Dave for the keys so that I could open the passenger side door so that I could use the door to hide behind while I peed. When I closed and locked the door, I had forgot to pick up the keys. Well, no one is perfect all of the time. July 24th, Bush Hill Road, north to Tom Leonard Shelter. It was a sunny and cool morning, but we anticipated a hard hike due to the elevation profile on the AT map. After leaving the 2 oranges in the same place as yesterday for thru hikers, we began the mellow climb up. It was not as bad as I had thought it would be. However, there was one rather difficult climb up a rocky cliff. We passed the first open view and saw a sign to follow some blue ribbons that rerouted the trail around a nasty crevice that the original trail crossed over. There had been a bridge over the crevice. However, the bridge was gone now, and the crevice was so wide that a hiker could easily slip and fall into the crevice. We had walked the path around the crevice to the other side and continued on the trail through an area with lots of views along some cliff rocks. We were surprised that it was not difficult and had believed that we had made it to the top. We reached a sign for a bad weather route bypass trail. We had planned on returning on this trail on our way back. We were wondering why there was a bad weather route, as the trail did not seem that bad. Well, we found out as we continued on the trail. We reached more rock ledges, but these were steeper and difficult to walk, as the trail began to go up and down several times over the rocky ledges. One of the ledges was difficult to go up and over. We had been walking a long time after leaving the ledge areas that was bordered by blueberry bushes. Then we reached more rocky ledges and more ups and down. I believe that these are referred to by thru hikers as PUIs, pointless up and downs. After about 3 miles, we were getting beat. Dave said that one of his ankles was killing him and that he had twisted it a couple of times with all these rocks. He looked like he was having some trouble walking, so we stopped and he wrapped up his ankle. Then we continued on the trail. It had felt like we had walked a long time, and in about 3.5 hours we saw the sign for the shelter. We had been to the Tom Leonard Shelter from the other side 2 years ago. It was in a nice pine forest. However, there were lots of mosquitoes out today, and they were really bad. As we were eating our lunch in the shelter, I thought I had seen a mouse running along the inside walls of the shelter. It jumped down from the top of a bunk bed and then ran down a broom handle to the ground right next to my feet, looking for crumbs. But it was not a mouse. It was a chipmunk. I had thrown a piece of my barbecue soy chip onto the ground away from me, and it ran after it and started to eat it. Then another chipmunk came running out of the woods and chased it away to try to steal it. We watched them chasing each other, but the first chipmunk won and came back to devour it. He, or most likely she, filled her cheeks with the chip. We went over to check out the tent platform because it had a great view. A couple and a small boy arrived at the shelter and said that they lived on Brush Hill Road. They told us that they had never been up here before. We headed back and passed some northbounders and some southbounders. We also passed some day hikers. There were a lot of people hiking this section of the trail today. We never found the other side of the bypass trail. I had seen some notes in the shelter logbook about the bypass trail. They were not favorable comments. They said that they had trouble finding the blazes on the trail and that the trail was all grown in to the point that you could not tell what was a path in the woods. One mentioned that some had even got lost on the bypass trail. We reached an ATV road that crossed the trail and decided to see if it would lead to the bypass trail. Dave had spotted a blue blaze on a tree along a dirt path off of the ATV road, so we headed onto the trail. It was all grown in and appeared to have never been walked on. On the way back, I saw a garter snake. Dave did not see it. It had slipped off into some leaves. We had seen some turkey vultures flying above us, and we heard some songbirds.